Hi guys, hope you're doing well. Straight down to business for this video. How much has this thing, the Taycan Turbo S, cost me since I bought it? We're going to be getting into some facts and figures later on in this video. But before we do, it'd be really grateful if you could just click on that sub button down there. Really would appreciate it. It will help get this content out there for others who are interested. I do promise to keep the Taycan content coming. That's one, isn't it? For anyone else who's interested, hopefully cover lots of useful information to help you make your mind up if you're looking at one of these that already have one, or just simply want to look at one, right? So really would appreciate it if you could do that. So let's crack on with the video itself. And one thing I've definitely learned about this car is how much it divides opinion. People either really love them or they literally run for the hills screaming, fingers and ears, no, this isn't happening, because it's an EV, and they're not even going to entertain it. It's an EV, I'm not bothered, take it away from me, it's making me feel ill. But if you can get on board with them a little bit, it is a great car, it really is a fantastic car. And when I bought this car, the world we lived in was very different to the world we live in today from a financial perspective. Everything's changed, it's almost unrecognizable. So we're going to look at things through the lens of when I ordered this and when I took delivery of it, to what it might look like now, and it has changed quite significantly, and unfortunately not for the better. So let's dig into this a little bit. Now, when I was exploring the option of getting one of these cars, I went through a lot of specs, a lot of configuration changes on this car. There's so many with a Porsche, so you have to work with your official Porsche dealer, your franchise, just to ensure that you're really comfortable with what is going to be locked in when you get your car, because it's a minefield. And I think I went through about 8,150 different configuration changes before I'd kind of locked in on what I really wanted to do with this car. And that was, you know, just the spec, right? The spec of the car, so we could get a rough quote. The first quote that I got, the first finance quote I got when we were getting towards locking this in, was in January of 2021. And that was pretty favorable at the time. And we still had some time before the build was locked in and we had to move forward with it. But the figures for that were pretty good. And just to look at those, it was a 36-month Porsche PCP, which was the most competitive APR I could find, looking at brokers as well, of 6.5%, which for me was phenomenal. And that was coming up at a £1,787 a month payment every month into Porsche, or VWFS as it's known, owned by the VAG group, right? So I thought that was actually pretty reasonable given the landscape at the time and what you might have to pay for a 911 or other very fancy, very posh marks of car, right? So I was very, very pleased with that. And, you know, it kind of helped me to make the decision about moving forward with one of these cars and ease the trepidation and nerves I had coming from a combustion engine McLaren into this as my car. So that was very favorable. And there was indeed another spec change to follow off my own bat. I decided to add the carbon package to this, and that changed things a little bit more. But that was the first quote I just mentioned there, was January in 2021. The spec change quote that I'm about to discuss was February 2021, and the payment had actually gone down from 1787 to 1765 a month. APR was still the same, but what had changed was that GFV. That GFV had come up by £2,000, which of course is going to help that monthly payment. The less the difference between that first outlay and the GFV, the less you're going to pay. Simple maths. So for me, again, this was moving in the right direction and helping to make the whole decision-making process easier still. So that was very positive news, and that spec was final. I locked that one in. This is the spec that I'm holding right here, wheel in hand, and driving around in now. And I have said before, the only thing I would change with this spec is, yes, the colour. I would honestly have gone for something a little bit lighter. I just think this colour loses the shape of the car a little bit. Previous videos looking into that in a bit more detail, but it's still a very nice car. I really do like it. So as we move forwards to the completion and getting all the contracts for PCP officially signed, because none of these quotes obviously were legally binding at this stage, because the finance offer was only approved in principle, but I hadn't officially signed the form to say, right, let's move forward with this finance offer. So when I did come to do that, we were into June, July of 2021, and the car was scheduled for an end of July delivery collection. So when I got that quote through, things had changed again, believe it or not. Not the spec, because obviously that was locked in, but the finance quote had changed for the better. Weird, right? By me doing nothing, just simply getting closer to having that finance quote redistributed by VWFS with the latest facts and figures. Don't forget, quotes can change, especially if you've got a long lead time on your car, which Porsche tend to. So I'm hearing all kinds of stories happen at the moment with people's finance offers being withdrawn, jumping up, especially with the way things are at the moment. We'll come on to that. So finance quote that I had, list price of the car was 150k, and the monthly payments had actually gone down to 1628 from 1765, which is a big old shift. And oh wow, this is great. And I thought in my head, have they made a bit of an error here? So I was very eager to get this one signed, which I did very quickly. But looking into the facts and figures, the APR had gone down by 0.05% to 6.45. It's not going to help a lot. But what had changed significantly was the GFV. It had gone up from sort of 89-ish thousand to a whopping £94,000, which is absolutely crazy. What a huge uplift. And what I think was having a bearing on this was, at the time, simply the strength of the Taycan market. People were flipping these from new and making a profit because demand for these specific cars was so high and supply was so scarce. Don't forget, we had the chip shortage, etc., coming out of COVID. So you had this crazy situation where cars were being valued for way more than they actually were. Of course, fast forward to now, and the world we live in is a very different place indeed. Yes, it is not as favourable at all in any way, shape or form. So this car that I'm driving around in now cost me £1,628 a month, a monthly payment, which, yeah, it is a lot of money, but I still think it represents relatively good value, especially given where we are now. So if I'd taken the quote that I just gave you, that June-July quote, and we pump in today's APR of 10%, it would be approaching £2,000 a month just with that APR change. But what also would change is that GFV. There is absolutely no way that you'd be getting a £94,000 GFV on this car on a 3-month PCP. I think it would be closer to maybe 80 at a guess, if that, given the way things are at the moment. That risk is going to be built into the quote, and it's going to supply you with a very unfavourable quotation indeed. So with that baked in, it could be sort of 2,100, 2,200 a month, which is a significant increase in terms of what I was looking at when I locked this in back in 2021. And there's not much you can do about that right now, unfortunately. You will see that across the board, regardless of make and model. What you might find for sure is GFVs looking a bit more favourable depending on the make and model of car. I think Porsche's combustion engine lineup, the likes of the 911 Panamera aside, is going to hold up very well and look very good indeed compared to one of these. So what does this car cost me to run? This is where it is very good indeed. So road tax 0. Yep, it's an EV. you don't pay any tax. Also, the servicing, it doesn't need a service for another year yet, so service interval of 2 years, and I think people are sort of saying about 500-600 quid. I don't even know what they do for a service, one of these. Maybe just empty the ashtrays that it doesn't even have, and I don't even smoke. So they're going to be pretty cheap to run. The other bit, of course, is EV, electrons, and what I've spent there, pumping it full of electrons. Well, I get free charging at work, and the charging outside of that I've worked out to be probably only about 150, 160 pounds worth, which for me is pretty impressive. You would not get that on an ICE car. ICE cars obviously drink a lot of petrol, maybe take a bit of oil as well if it's a sporty one. So I hope that's provided you with a bit of insight into what this car's cost to run, and as you can see, it is very, very cost effective indeed, and for me has really ticked a box there. So thanks for watching, do stay safe, stay well, see you in the next one, bye for now.